A warm welcome to the Asian channel. My name is James and I've been living in Asia for over 30 years. Today, are we talking about a problem and what is happening? Chinese leftover single women. In China, if you're over 30 years old, 29, 30, you are a leftover. In other words, no man wants to date you or marry you, whatever, because of the stigma and a very old-fashioned tradition, which is like so old that you should be married at least by 25, 26 years old. But women don't want to. Some do, and again, some don't. Why? Well, statistics show that in China, if you do get married at 26, there's a high percentage by the time you're 34, you'll end up in divorce or a very uncomfortable marriage. Why is it a requirement, so to speak, to get married at such a young age is traditional. And it's the parents who, because of face value, want their child, especially their daughter, to get married at a young age so they could have a kingpin husband who is 31 years old with a younger wife. It's traditional, and if you don't, many people would think it's weird that you're 31, 32, especially the older generation who's not married and especially doesn't have any kids. So basically what happened before, you would sort of be forced into a marriage, like an arranged marriage in India, so to speak, where you don't really love your spouse, your partner. You're just doing it to please your parents, and your parents want to not lose face value with their neighbors, for example. And after you get married, the grandparents and the parents will sort of demand, where is the child, for example, which is really unfair for the women. But the ladies in China, enough is enough is enough. They show their parents these statistics and say, I don't want to get married just because it's a tradition and because of face value. I want to marry for one thing and one thing only, because I love the person. Regardless if he's rich or poor, it's only about love. I also want to enjoy being young, let's say from 25 after you graduate university to 30. You're only young once, and it's the best time of your life. Now, granted, you may fall in love at 26 and you may be happy for 50 years. We don't know the future, but a lot of women are changing their point of view now and say, no, I've been to university, I've got a master's, I don't now suddenly want to be a housewife. What's the point of studying all these years if I can't work? So they want their own money, they want their own life, exactly the same as the men. And the men won't get pressured into getting married until they're in their 30s, after they settle down and they have an income, maybe a house and possibly a car as well. So a lot of parents would actually examine the boyfriend, not because of love or his good looks, because of his wealth. Does he have a good job? Does he have an apartment that they can live in? And it's so backward and it's so out of date. In China's supposedly high-tech modern world, it doesn't make sense to me. In China, there are more men than there are women. So you would think that women would have a wider choice of partners to choose from. But it all seems to be handled in the old traditional way by parents and grandparents. And I think the women have just had enough is enough is enough. We want our life, and we will get married when we want to, and we want to have children when we want to, not when their parents demand it because they're worried about what their neighbors would say. And I would totally support the women on this one. I believe in sort of like love, say, and you marry because of love, or you live together because of love. Doesn't matter what age it is. And again, being young, how to say, you're only young once, so enjoy it without the attachment or the aggravation of being married. And some of the emperors, the boys, will treat their wives like, well, shit. I've met actually two who I actually said to the actual wife, say, divorce the idiot. He's a twat. He sits at home watching TV. You work in your office, and then you come home, then you look after the kids, you cook the dinner, you do all the housework, while your little emperor does absolutely nothing, just because it's his house in the ownership, just because he earns more money. And it doesn't give him the right to be that emperor. But this is how some of the kids are raised in that way. Some women will conform to it. Some women may actually fall in love, and yes, very happy. If they're really super lucky, they are both quite wealthy and they can have a fantastic life. I'm not condemning in this way, but you shouldn't ever be forced into something related to a partnership, because a partnership supposedly is for life. So what do you think of this? Is it similar, you could say, sort of similar in a way to the arranged marriage which still happens in India? Now, some arranged marriages, India or the Indian people, do actually work. But times move forward, and I think the right age to get married when you're young is actually in your 30s. You've got everything out of your system when you're young. You've traveled, you've had boyfriends, you've had relationships, you've experienced. If you don't have that, by the time you're 34, you get a little bit itchy feet, and you want to while you're still relatively young. And this is what Chinese women are going through. Why should I go through this if I don't want to? And it's only because of face value, because it's the way it is, that the little emperor will treat you like a housemaid. And they don't want that. Why would anyone want that? You want to earn your own money. You want to have your own iPhone. You don't want to rely on your husband to say, oh, I need a new iPhone. He will actually, well, clean more, and you may get an iPhone on your birthday. So he's like the lord of the manor, and his wife is like the cleaner, the housekeeper. And because divorce actually in China is becoming more acceptable, more women are doing this. So it's time for a change, and I do support the leftover women. Get married when you want to. Have kids when you want to. Don't be forced into a relationship from culture, tradition, your parents, your grandparents, because they did it. It means, like, if 200 people jumped off a bridge at 30 years old, would you follow them? No, it's your life. So if there are any people watching in China, and if there are any little emperors who are going, oh, this is so ridiculous, well, go and truly speak to your wife and see what she really wants. Maybe she is happy, honestly, but if she's not, then you need to make a change. My name is James. Thank you so much for your time. The thumbs up, subscribe, share, and if you feel generous enough to support the channel, all the links are in the description below. Bye-bye for now. Thank you very much.